Before you relax into this video, let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. What if the woman you can't stop thinking about has already been trying to get your attention, and you've been missing it this whole time? Stay with me, because by the end of this, you might realize you weren't invisible, you were just unaware. But before we go deeper, take a second, subscribe to the channel, like this video, because what I'm about to share isn't surface-level advice. It's the kind of psychological truth most men never learn, and it changes everything. Now listen carefully. Women are not as obvious as you've been told. They don't always chase, they signal. And those signals? They are subtle, controlled, and often designed to test your awareness, not just your confidence. The first thing you need to understand is this. When a woman wants to be noticed by you, she rarely says it directly. Not because she's playing games, but because attraction for her is deeply tied to emotional safety and perception. She wants to know if you can read between the lines, if you can feel her presence without her having to shout for it. And here's where most men fail. You've been trained to look for loud signs, clear interest, obvious flirting, direct compliments. But what she gives you instead are quiet invitations. Moments that seem small, almost accidental, but they're not. When a woman positions herself within your world repeatedly, when she appears in your environment more than coincidence would allow, that's not random. That's intention wrapped in subtlety. She might sit closer than necessary. She might linger a second longer than normal. She might create tiny opportunities for interaction that feel casual, but they're calculated. Not manipulative, intentional. And if you're not paying attention, you'll dismiss it as nothing. That's the danger. Because from her perspective, every unnoticed signal feels like rejection. Every moment you overlook slowly closes the door she was trying to open. So the real question isn't, does she like me? The real question is, are you aware enough to notice when she wants you to see her? Because the men who understand this don't chase harder. They see clearer. And that's exactly what makes them impossible to ignore. Now I want you to slow down for a moment, because what I'm about to tell you separates guessing from actually understanding female behavior on a psychological level. One of the clearest signs she wants you to notice her is repetition of presence. Let me explain this in a way most men never hear. When someone shows up once, it's coincidence. When they show up twice, it might still be chance. But when a woman repeatedly places herself in your visual field, same spaces, same timing, same proximity, that is not random anymore. She is not just being there. She is making herself available to be seen by you. And here's the part men miss. She will do it in a way that protects her ego. She won't force interaction. She won't approach directly at first. Instead, she creates familiarity. She becomes part of your environment without demanding attention. Why? Because she wants to be noticed without risking rejection. This is where psychology becomes powerful. Human beings are wired to notice patterns. When something repeats, your brain assigns meaning to it. She knows this unconsciously. So she becomes a pattern in your life, not loudly but consistently. You start seeing her more than expected, at the same cafe, the same social space, the same time window, even when logic says she shouldn't be there that often. And then something subtle happens inside you. Your attention starts adjusting to her presence. That's the beginning of attraction forming on your side. But there's another layer most men completely miss. She will also test whether you notice the repetition, not through words, but through micro-behavior shifts. She might glance at you slightly longer. She might pause when you're nearby. She might position herself where she can be seen, but not approached too easily. It's a silent question she's asking you. Do you see me? Or am I invisible to you? And if you never respond to that question, if you never acknowledge her presence even with simple awareness, you unknowingly signal disinterest. Not because you don't care, but because you didn't see. And in attraction, being unseen often feels worse than being rejected. So understand this clearly. When a woman wants you to notice her, she doesn't always come closer. Sometimes, she just keeps appearing until you finally wake up to what's been in front of you the entire time. There's something even more subtle, something most men feel but can't quite explain, and that is the shift in her attention when you enter the space. Pay close attention to this, because it's one of the most honest signals you'll ever get. When a woman wants you to notice her, her focus betrays her before her words ever do. You'll see it in the way her energy changes the moment you're around. She might be engaged in a conversation, laughing, distracted, but the second you appear, something in her awareness shifts toward you. Not dramatically, not in a way that calls attention from others, but enough that if you're observant, you'll catch it. Her eyes may find you briefly, then look away. And here's where most men misinterpret. They think, she looked away, so she's not interested. No, she looked away because she is. That quick glance followed by withdrawal isn't disinterest, it's self-control. It's her managing the fact that she noticed you first and doesn't want to make it obvious. Attraction often shows itself in restraint, not exaggeration. Sometimes she'll check if you're looking when she thinks you're not. Other times, she'll hold eye contact just a second longer than normal, then break it like it meant nothing. But it meant something. It meant she's aware of you, and awareness is the first step toward connection. There's another layer to this, her body orientation. Even when she's not directly interacting with you, her body will subtly angle in your direction. Her feet, her shoulders, even the way she positions herself in a group. It quietly opens toward you. Not always fully, but enough. Because the body doesn't lie the way words can. Now here's the uncomfortable truth you need to hear. If you ignore these signals, if you stay locked in your own world, distracted, unaware, she will slowly pull back. Not because she lost interest, but because she assumes you're not receptive. Women don't want to feel like they're chasing a man who doesn't even notice their existence. So they retreat, quietly. And you're left wondering why nothing ever happened. So next time you're in a room, stop focusing only on what's loud and obvious. Start noticing what's controlled, what's brief, what's almost hidden. Because sometimes the strongest signal she gives you is the one she tries hardest to hide. Now let's go deeper, because this next sign is where things stop being about coincidence and start becoming about emotional investment. When a woman wants you to notice her, she begins to create small reasons to exist in your world. And I don't mean dramatic gestures, I mean subtle openings. She might ask you a question she already knows the answer to. She might comment on something you both experienced together. She might bring up a detail from a previous interaction that didn't seem important at the time. Why does she do this? Because she's building continuity between you and her. Human psychology is simple in one way but powerful in another. We bond through repeated emotional threads, even tiny ones. A shared joke, a remembered detail, a small callback to a previous moment. She uses this instinctively, and here's what it looks like in real life. She finds a reason to speak to you, even when she doesn't have to. She keeps the conversation going slightly longer than necessary. She doesn't rush to end it. She leaves space for you to respond, to continue, to engage. But she won't force it. That's the balance. She's not chasing you. She's opening doors and seeing if you walk through them. Now pay attention to this part carefully. When she starts remembering small things about you, things you didn't even think were memorable, that is not random memory. That is emotional tagging. She's assigning significance to you in her mind. And once a woman starts remembering details, she starts feeling familiarity. And familiarity is one of the strongest foundations of attraction. But here's where most men misread everything. They assume if she's not being obvious, she's not interested. So they stay passive. They don't respond with presence. They don't acknowledge the openings. They don't recognize the effort hidden inside her casual behavior. And slowly, she stops creating those openings. Not because her interest disappears immediately, but because effort without recognition feels unsafe. Think about that. If someone keeps extending a bridge toward you and you never step forward, eventually they stop building it. That's what happens here. So when she starts finding reasons to talk to you, don't dismiss it as random friendliness, because sometimes what looks casual on the surface is actually her trying to become part of your attention without risking her heart in the process. Now I want you to notice something most men completely overlook, because it doesn't feel like attraction at first. It feels like coincidence, or even coincidence that's slightly too convenient. When a woman wants you to notice her, she begins to adjust her timing around you. Not in an obvious way, not in a dramatic way, but in small, repeated patterns that slowly start to align with your presence. You show up somewhere, and she's already there. You leave a space, and she lingers a little longer. You change your routine, and somehow she adapts without explanation. And if you're not paying attention, your mind dismisses it as randomness. But psychologically, repetition that aligns with a specific person is rarely meaningless. She is creating proximity, because proximity is the foundation of emotional familiarity. Now here's what's really happening underneath it. She is testing something silently. Do I exist in his awareness or not? So she places herself where she can be seen without forcing herself into your space. She's not interrupting your life, she's weaving into it. And this is where emotional tension builds. Because the more you see someone in different contexts, the more your brain starts to assign meaning to their presence. She knows this instinctively. So she allows herself to be seen in varied situations, slightly different moods, slightly different settings, but always within reach of your attention. Now here's the part men misunderstand the most. They think if she keeps appearing, it means she will eventually come closer. But that's not always true. Because her goal is not to chase you. Her goal is to be noticed in a way that feels safe for her. And if you never acknowledge that pattern, if you stay detached, distracted, or unaware, she will interpret it in one painful way. I am not registering in his world. And once that belief forms, she begins to withdraw that pattern completely, not dramatically, quietly. The appearances slow down. The coincidences stop feeling like coincidences. The connection dissolves before it ever fully formed. So understand this clearly. When a woman starts adjusting her timing around you, she is not just being nearby. She is trying to become part of your reality without needing to ask for permission. Now we reach one of the most emotionally revealing signs. And if you understand this correctly, you will stop doubting yourself in situations where you previously overthought everything. When a woman wants you to notice her, she becomes more expressive in your direction than she is with others in the same space. And I don't mean louder, I mean more alive. You'll notice it in contrast. With everyone else, she may be neutral, composed, even slightly reserved. But when you are nearby, something shifts in her emotional expression. She becomes more animated, more engaged, more responsive. It's subtle, but it's consistent. She laughs a little more freely when you're around. She reacts a little more strongly to things you say, even simple ones. She becomes more present in moments that include you, even if she's not directly speaking to you. Now listen carefully, because this is where most men misinterpret everything. They think she's just a friendly person, but friendliness is equal distribution. What you're seeing here is selective emotional amplification. Her emotional energy increases specifically in your direction. Why does this happen? Because emotion is one of the easiest ways to create connection without direct confession. When a woman feels safe or interested in your presence, her emotional guard lowers slightly, not completely, but enough that her natural expression becomes more visible. And here's the psychological truth underneath it. She is trying to be memorable to you, not through words, through feeling, because feelings stick longer than logic. Now there's another layer most men miss completely. She will often look for your reaction after she expresses something, not always directly, but subtly. She wants to see if you noticed her laugh, her tone, her presence in that moment. That reaction becomes her feedback loop. Did he see me? Did I affect him? Did I register in his awareness? And if she gets no feedback, no acknowledgement, no sign that her emotional expression landed anywhere, she starts to shrink that expression over time. Not because she's losing interest, but because emotional effort without recognition feels like shouting into silence. So understand this clearly. When a woman becomes more expressive around you, she is not trying to entertain a room. She is unconsciously trying to make sure she doesn't disappear in yours. Now we arrive at the final sign, and this is the one that most men completely misunderstand because it doesn't look like attraction at all on the surface. It looks like attention that comes and goes. But in reality, it's controlled exposure. When a woman wants you to notice her, she won't always stay fully engaged. Instead, she alternates between presence and distance in your awareness. One moment she is clearly there, visible, expressive, near your line of sight, and then suddenly she withdraws slightly, not physically leaving, but emotionally or visually stepping back just enough to make you notice the absence. And if you are paying attention, you will feel it. That subtle shift where her presence was there, and then it's not as available anymore. Now here's what's happening psychologically. She is creating contrast, because contrast creates awareness. When something is consistently present, your brain stops registering it as significant. But when presence becomes slightly unpredictable, when it appears and softens, engages and withdraws, you start paying attention. Not because she is playing games, but because she is testing emotional impact. She wants to know, do I matter enough in his awareness that my absence is noticed? And this is where emotional truth reveals itself. Because a man who is truly aware doesn't just notice when someone is present, he notices when their presence changes. Now here's the part most men never connect. If you respond correctly to these subtle shifts, if you acknowledge presence without chasing it, if you remain grounded while still being aware, you create something powerful. You become the reference point, not the pursuer, not the confused observer, but the man who notices patterns others miss. And when that happens, something shifts in her psychology too. Because she realizes she doesn't have to exaggerate her presence to be seen. She doesn't have to disappear to be valued. She doesn't have to guess whether she is noticed. She just is. And that creates a different kind of attraction entirely, one that is calm, mutual, and grounded in awareness instead of uncertainty. But if these signs are ignored, if they are dismissed or never recognized at all, then the story quietly ends before it ever begins. Not with rejection, but with missed recognition. So understand this clearly. Sometimes the biggest difference between nothing happening and something meaningful beginning is simply whether you were paying attention when she was trying to be seen.